The Nike Air Zoom Pegasus 38, brand new everyday trainer on the market. Let's talk about it. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the vlog. My name is Filip Latocha, and today we are going to be discussing the brand new Nike Air Zoom Pegasus 38, the good, the bad, if any, and just my overall thoughts on the shoe as we see it slightly compared to the Pegasus 37. I don't want to deep dive it quite yet, but I do just want to give my overall thoughts as this shoe as it stands by itself. So before we get into it, you guys know how this works. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. If you're already subscribed and you're already watching this content, thanks so much, guys. Love you all. So without further ado, let's get into it. Basically, the shoe's general specs, which I will leave right here, closely resemble the Pegasus 37. Why is that ultimately? Well, it seems like the midsole and the outsole haven't changed all too much on the shoe. I'm going to, again, confirm this 100% as we get to observing it and talking about it. But obviously the big changes are in the upper. So let's start with that first. Basically in the upper, it's resembling more of like a textile mesh, pretty much covering, which is a lot more breathable, a lot more flexible. Kind of resembles more actually the Pegasus 36, the previous model, and it's overall, I think, pretty good, and it's making one major change, which I think there's a consensus of on some of these other comparison videos, is that the toe box is a little bit more spread out, and it allows you to have a little more breathability and flexibility in your toes. This is a good thing because one of the issues in the Pegasus 37 that people reported was that despite this material being pretty thick and pretty stable, not able to be ripped nearly as much, the breathability of the toes and that lock just kind of caused some issues overall for some people. I personally didn't see it that way. I overall really enjoyed this Pegasus 37 in particular. We'll discuss that another time as to why. Or if you've watched my previous videos, you probably already know the answer to that. But again, let's focus on this. So that's one of the major changes going on in this shoe. And then, of course, one of the other changes in this upper is that this tongue, also using similar material, is no longer using this cheap material with the anterior side design that is kind of resembling what you would see in like a Vaporfly Next Percent or some of the other shoes out there in the market. This one's just straight across, and based on the plush and the cushion that they've added to this tongue, it helps you get a better lockdown in the midfoot by allowing you to pull those laces in and having that lock just square right there. And in turn, this creates more of a heel lock in this particular shoe. So that's another thing that I guess we can bring up, is that in this shoe collar heel area with the Achilles pillow and all that, the lock in the Pegasus 37, again, I was kind of indifferent to it, but it's definitely noticeable in the 38 that it's locked down better with this particular tongue. The material hasn't changed all too much in this area of the shoe inside the shoe collar, but on the outside, of course, it's still using the textile mesh. But with this tongue in play, it definitely helps you lock in your foot a lot better than using the previous tongue, which was a little bit of a cheaper material, a lot more thinner, and that's just basically one of the major improvements of the shoe overall. So let's talk about the midsole. Of course, the heel is about 28 millimeters with the midfoot being 18. This hasn't really changed all too much. The offset being 10 millimeters gives you kind of a higher feel to the shoe, almost like a high heel, but in a way, not really. The ride with the outsole, so this is something that I'm going to be researching as we go along with it, this was one of my big questions with the 37, was basically, I guess we can do this recap while we have it here. So if you guys are new to this channel, you guys will probably see that this particular Pegasus 37, I shredded it past 400 plus miles because I loved running in this shoe. The rubber was awesome. There was a lot of snap in this Air Zoom pocket that's here in the shoe, and I just loved it so much I bought another pair. But the problem was the second pair that I bought just did not feel the same. It just felt flat. It wasn't nearly as snappy, and I just did not like running in this shoe at all. Basically, I was doing a lot of research on the potential of this being a traditional tougher rubber versus this shoe having this more sticky, kind of gooey rubber that's available in the market. And I'm still kind of inconclusive if that was the ultimate culprit as to why the rides of the shoe felt different. But it is something that is definitely in play for me to continue researching on this end of things. Now, how this rolls into the Pegasus 38. This is definitely feeling a lot more like this sticky rubber that was in the previous pair of Peg 37s that I have here. And that's ultimately going to be a good thing because I like that ride a lot. And this air zoom pocket that's here in this forefoot area is still feeling pretty snappy. Not nearly as snappy yet, maybe just because that honeymoon phase of the shoe with this Pegasus build is kind of over, and I kind of know what to expect. But overall, it still has this similar feel where I'm going to have a nice, stable, responsive ride overall that isn't going to be necessarily pushing me to go faster and faster as I run, but it's going to keep my pace pretty stable throughout the duration of my workout. So speaking of workout, here's my Strava for this particular run that I had today in the shoe. The pace is showing up as 6:20, but you know, Strava likes to make everyone look awesome. I think it was more like 6:40, 6:50 pace. I was like really just relaxing in this shoe, just trying to feel it out. So overall, that's kind of what's going on here. So I also have this hypothesis with this particular shoe that some of the material that they took from the upper to lose some of the weight, they put back the weight in this outsole area. And what I'm talking about specifically is like some of these areas with the rubber on the outside of this particular outsole. It looks, just from an eye's view, that it's a lot thicker than it was in the previous pair of Pegasus 37s. Now, I don't have a brand new pair that I can compare it necessarily to, but just from, you know, just looking at it, it looks like it's a lot thicker, which I think is going to add a lot of shoe life to it. And especially for me, for somebody who will just like beat these shoes down 200, 300 miles in and just shred them to, you know, the bone, it's probably going to be a good thing overall. So I'm going to, of course, observe this with great interest and to just basically see how far I can take it before it begins looking something like this. So that's just something, of course, to observe. Now, first impression-wise from my first run with the shoe, there was two things I noticed. One, I think this is a very common thing with new shoes, is that it just feels like the forefoot, midfoot area of your shoe is like burning because you're breaking in this rubber. Obviously, that's something I was feeling first and foremost. But the second thing was in my left foot specifically, it started feeling like the air zoom pocket, or this pod that's in the shoe, it felt like it was pushing against the bottom of my foot while I was running. And now there's a couple of things that could be obviously responsible for this. I don't think it's a manufacturing thing where this pod is just punching into your foot. It could be that because I broke my foot, specifically the third metatarsal, like 2 years ago, I sometimes get like an inflammation there once in a while that just feels like something's just pushing at my specific like forefoot area. That's probably what it could be. But again, this is just something I observed from my first run. So if this is something that keeps adding up, maybe it's worth, you know, trying to open up the shoe just to see where this air pocket is, what it's doing, if it's something serious to look out for. I don't know, just my observations. So my overall thoughts with this shoe right now is that it's pretty much exactly what I expected it to be. I am pleasantly surprised with how the upper is a little bit more responsive and a lot more flexible. And the lock of the shoe is still pretty good overall. I don't personally feel any major differences with it, but if the rest of the world is thinking that they feel a lot more locked down in it, you know, more power to you for that run, for that daily training endeavor. And of course, this particular color scheme, I chose it because it resembles the United Airlines livery. I will post it somewhere here. Is it pronounced livery or livery? You guys should comment that down below and just let me know. But anyways, yeah. I think this is where I stand with the shoe at my first impressions. I will probably do a review at about 50 to 100 miles, depending on which one is more substantial, which one will see more damage, I guess, ultimately. So, yeah, I think we're just going to leave it here. Let me know your thoughts on this shoe below. If you have any questions about it, I will try to answer them as best as I can. I will have a deep dive comparison to the Pegasus 37 probably coming out within the next week of this particular video, so stay tuned for that if you really want me to break down the differences as I have observed them. So that being said, I'm going to end the video here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys real soon.